2024 has turned out to be the year of exposure, exposing the people outside of the church as well as the people within the church. And what do this mean for Christians? I'm going to talk about that as well as show a video clip of Ethan Fisher, who is the son-in-law of Robert Morris. I think God is using 2024 as a year to bring his people back to him, to open our eyes to see who he truly is. Church is about worshiping God. And in today's date, we worship everybody and everything other than God within church. Church look more like the world than the world do at times. You see a lot of things going on in church that should not be going on in church. You see a lot of things happening with Christians, people who say, if you ask them, are you a Christian? They say yes, but they're only Sunday Christians. They're holier than thou during Sunday, but the rest of the week, they're serving Satan. When you look at people as far as saying, I'm a Christian, but how do they speak? How do they talk? How do they treat other people? I'm a Christian, but how do you dress? How do you carry yourself? How do you interact with other people as well as interact with the world? We can't be on the fence. We can't love God only on Sunday or only if he's giving us what we want, if only he's serving us instead of us serving him. We have to love God all the time. God will always show himself as God. We have no control of that. And I think that's what this year is about, is showing us these are the people that you're worshiping outside of church. You're living for the world. These are your idols. And so he's bringing those people down. Inside the church, these are the people that you're worshiping. Pastors, bishop, you're following them, but you're not following God. God is always going to come for his people and always show his people mercy and grace. But at the same time, he's going to always put himself above everyone, because that's where he's supposed to be, in our hearts, above everyone. And he will show us who he is. When you look at the Bible and you look at Numbers 21, 6 through 9 ESV, and before I actually read this passage, this is Moses bringing the Israelites out of slavery. They're in the desert. The whole time they're in the desert, they're complaining that slavery was better than what they have in the desert. Being slave to Egyptian was much better than being free. They complained about the food, the manna that God was dropping down every morning. They was complaining about not having water, even though they had water to drink. They was complaining about Moses, and they was also complaining about God. So Numbers 21, 6 through 9 ESV. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he takes away the serpent from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. Before I get into my thought process on this, I want you to think about one thing. In modern day society, when you see a snake wrapped around a pole, what do that remind you of? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. I'm also going to share with you that video with Ethan Fisher, Elaine's husband. She's the daughter of Robert Morris. They have 4 kids together, 2 girls and 2 boys.
A time to cry, and there is a time to mourn. And Jeremiah 8, verse 21, it says this: since my people are crushed, I am crushed. I mourn, and horror grips me. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then is there no healing for the wound of my people? And the place that they were supposed to be healing was actually the place that there was ultimate pain. And he's wondering, why isn't there a healing presence of what God can bring in that moment? And a part of grieving is actually making space for the feelings that you are experiencing in the moment. Sin will always lead to sadness and a broken heart. Whether the feelings are feelings of hurt, they could be feelings of devastation, feelings of anger, uh, feelings of disappointment, betrayal, confusion, disbelief, shock, or even just simply surprise. The truth is, I've felt all of these feelings over the past week. And they kind of come in waves, and the grief comes in waves, and what we've had to navigate. And I've grieved for my family personally, but I also grieve for you as a church, and have prayed for you a countless number of times. I know that situations like this also bring up painful memories of past experiences. In a church our size, I know that there are many others who have a story of experiencing the harm, trauma, and pain of abuse. The truth is, you carried a weight with you that you should never have been placed on you, or what should have never been done to you. And as a pastor, I'm sincerely sorry for the pain that you have carried for so long, especially if that pain has come at the hands of pastors. As a church, our desire is to come alongside you to be a part of the journey of healing. I believe we serve a God who can restore our souls even in the midst of unimaginable suffering and pain. And practically as a church, we want to come alongside you to be able to help you in the journey toward healing. At both locations, there'll be a place where you can go. In the service at Guest Central, you can grab a card, but you can also email care@gatewayhome.com, and we'll connect you with resources and counselors. Because I don't want all these feelings to just come up and not us be able to get the healing that we need. About 7 months ago, I went through a vocal surgery. And the truth is, I know how hard it is to be silent for just simply a week. I can't even begin to imagine what it's been like for those who have been silent and carried the pain for decades. There are times in life when you face circumstances that are not your fault, but you can step in and take responsibility and lead people towards healing and hope. And as a church, and me personally, I'm committed to being a voice for those who may have felt like they've been voiceless for so long. I've wrestled with many questions while trying to find answers. The hardest part is that every answer only seems to lead to more questions for me. And it may be the same for you as well. Elaine and I were processing it, obviously, as family. Elaine is a daughter, and I've done my best to be there for her. Me as a son-in-law. We're processing the pain in real time in the same way I know many of you are. We're having to navigate tough conversations with our children around this conversation, and shedding tears as we process with them. Many of you know we have a daughter who's 10 and a daughter who's 9, and having to navigate the emotions and trying to do our best to care for them. We've lived in this tension of loving a person while at the same time knowing there are consequences to actions. God is love, and he is also just. While forgiveness is available, there are also many times costs to our decisions. Elaine and I are doing our best to pursue healing and turn to the Lord during this time. We want to be able to lead and love God and his people for a long time, and we know that something like this can rock the faith of many, and it can also hinder the purity of our hearts. This is why we're proactively pursuing counseling with trusted people and wholeness that can only be found in God.
So one of the things I want to point out in that video with Ethan, you notice he said that church was supposed to be a place of healing, but instead of being a place for healing, it hurt a lot of people. And if you think about with the passage I read, the scripture I read with Moses and that pole, the people were supposed to get healed from that pole, but they eventually started worshiping that. They cut God out of it and made it about the pole. God punished them with the snake because they wasn't being grateful, because they wasn't being satisfied, because they was always complaining. And so he sent the fiery serpents to bite them, and the pole was a reminder of what he did and what he can do. But they cut God out and started worshiping the pole. Just like in church, people stopped worshiping God, the healer, and they start focusing and worshiping man, the pastor, the priest, the bishop. This is the people they worship. This is the people they uphold. That's why when people come out in churches, not just this situation with Cindy and Robert Morris, but when they come out in churches, because this is a lot going on in churches. I spoke about this many of times in other videos. Even with the Catholic Church, all those boys that have been MO'd by these priests, and the priests never got anything done to them. They just moved them to a different location to continue the same thing they're doing. They never thought about getting help for the boys, and they never thought about doing anything to these grown men who've taken advantage of these kids. Just like these grown men in the church are doing the same thing. When you take God out of situation and put man above God, this is the things that you get. The way this world is moving today is because people, especially in the United States, feel that God is not necessary. God is here to serve me. God is here to give me what I want. And if God don't give me what I want, I'm going to go to someone else. I'm going to go to something else. I'm going to start worshiping something, someone, whatever I need to worship to get what I want. Even if I have to bend down to Satan and start worshiping him. That's the world that we live in today. And I want to read another scripture to you. And this is approximately 800 years after Moses actually erected the bronze serpent to heal the people. Not for them to worship, but for them to look at it and be healed. And now there's a new king of Judah, and that's Hezekiah. He is now king, and this is 2 Kings 18:4 through 8 ESV. He removed the high place and broke the pillars and cut down the Asher. And he broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For into those days the people of Israel had made offerings to it. It was called Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, so that there was none like him among all the kings of Judah after him, nor among those who were before him. For he held fast to the Lord. He did not depart from following him, but kept the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses. And the Lord was with him. Wherever he went out, he prospered. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and would not serve him. He struck down the Philistines as far as Gaza and its territory, from watchtower to fortified cities. So King Hezekiah, he understood that God, there was nothing or no one above God, and he served God loyally. He worshiped God. He obeyed God. He put God first in everything he do. So until we as Christians start putting God first in our lives, until we as Christians understand the most important thing we can do is be followers of Christ, followers of Jesus' word, and not just reading these words as words in the Bible, but actually living them, actually putting them in our hearts and going out into the world and living them. We are human. We are going to make mistakes. It's one thing to make a mistake where you're maybe driving in a car and someone cuts you off, and then all of a sudden you start, cursing them out. That's a slip up. That's a mess up. But there's another thing about being criminal, which is intentional. You're saying to yourself, you're being predatory against children. I'm going to take advantage of a child who cannot fight me back, who cannot resist, who doesn't understand. The weakest of the weak, that's who I'm going to choose to take advantage of. And that's in church. These are the people that you hold in high esteem and then get mad at people that call them out. That is what we're supposed to do in church. Call out the wolves in sheep clothing. Call out the false prophet. Call out people who are in the church but not with God, not followers of Christ. So y'all are upholding Judas and holding down Christ.